What's going on, everybody? What's up? Hope you're having a good Tuesday. This video you're watching is my series of Year in Wrestling videos. This is, excuse me, this is the Year in Wrestling, the year 2000, part 3. Hopefully I won't go on for a whole hour. I'm going to talk about September and some of the big matches that I cared about at pay-per-views from September to the end of 2000. So this is my last video on the year 2000. And 2000 was a pretty entertaining year in the WWF. Not so much in WCW at all. And ECW in 2000 was pretty damn good also, and they put on some great matches. And they had some great tag matches, like the FBI versus Tajiri and Mikey Whipwreck. They had an ECW tag team tournament at the end of August at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City. The finals of the tournament was the FBI, Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke against Tajiri and Mikey Whipwreck. That was an awesome tag team match. And it was shown on ECW on TNN, and it was right before September 2000, where ECW basically got kicked off TNN in September 2000 for the WWF and Monday Night Raw, and the WWF would come to TNN. And TNN is known now as Spike TV, but back in the day it was TNN. I always hated that name. It was, I believe it was called the Nashville Network in '99 when ECW first started airing on TNN. It was called the Nashville Network, and it was a god-awful network. They had absolutely not one entertaining show on it except for ECW. That was it. They had some crap roller jam, roller blading, whatever the hell you call it, roller derby type show. It was called Roller Jam. I believe it was after ECW on Friday nights. It was god awful. So ECW gets basically screwed and fucked in their TNN deal because TNN kicks ECW off their network. And I guess they signed a 1-year contract, so they let ECW out of the deal, so they didn't have television. They didn't have any TV deal on cable anymore. So ECW was pretty screwed when they got kicked off at TNN because they needed a cable television deal to survive. Anyways, ECW went out of business in 2001 before WCW did. I'll talk about that in my 2001 video. I'm going to start it off talking about, so that was in September. ECW got kicked off at TNN and for the WWF because they took Raw from the USA Network, and they got all of the WWF programming. They got Monday Night Raw. They got a new show, Velocity, that was on Saturday nights. Sunday Night Heat, I believe, was on MTV. Sunday Night Heat went on to MTV because I guess TNN at the time and MTV were under the same ownership of Viacom. The big corporation Viacom owns Spike TV and MTV and probably some other channels. So Sunday Night Heat was brought over with Raw to TNN along with Velocity. And in 2002, they even started WWF Confidential, which they brought back Mean Gene Okerlund to host it. It was like a behind-the-scenes type show in the WWF. It was a pretty good show. It was called Contra, or what the hell was it? I just said the name. It was called Confidential, I believe. And it was a pretty entertaining show, behind-the-scenes look at the WWF and storylines and history of. They did documentary type shows, history of stuff, history of WCW, and how Nitro won for 83 weeks. That's the type of shows that Confidential did. one of their first shows in 2002, they featured Shawn Michaels, and they did a long interview with him, like a three parts of an interview with Shawn Michaels before he would return to the ring at SummerSlam 2002. But I'm going to start now talking about September 2000. I believe they were on TNN. WWF Raw came on to TNN the night after Unforgiven 2000 in September. So I'll talk about Unforgiven. 2000, you had Stone Cold Steve Austin show up. He wasn't showing up to wrestle, but he was advertised to appear at Unforgiven, and he did appear. And he came out to the ring, and he stunned Shane McMahon. He stunnered him 3 times. That was pretty entertaining. What else? The main event, Unforgiven 2000. I believe they put on a tag team tables match. Let me look it up here. And the main event of Unforgiven was also pretty good. Let's see here. Unforgiven 2000 had I guess it's a gauntlet. Tag team gauntlet match. 8 teams were in it. The Right to Censor defeated the Dudleys and the Acolytes in the 8-man gauntlet, so I guess the Right to Censor won it. You also had Taz at Unforgiven take on Jerry Lawler in a strap match. I dropped something. Anyways, Taz took on Jerry Lawler at Unforgiven 2000. That was pretty entertaining. And you had the WWF debut of Raven. Raven ran in from the crowd. I believe it was in Philadelphia. Unforgiven was in Philly. It was in Philadelphia, the home of ECW. Raven returns to the WWF, but he doesn't return as Johnny Polo. He returns as his Raven gimmick that he started in ECW. And most definitely, the Raven gimmick was the most successful gimmick for him. For Scotty. I don't know his last name. I just know Raven's first name, I believe, is Scotty. Or Scott. So Raven comes out of the crowd in Philly, gets in the ring, DDTs Jerry the King Lawler, and I believe he cost Taz defeated Jerry Lawler because of that. So Raven makes his WWF debut coming over from ECW. I enjoyed that. I actually popped and marked out when I saw Raven show up. The main event was also pretty good. It was a Fatal 4-Way. It was a Fatal 4-Way match for the WWF Championship. The Rock was the champion. He defended against Chris Benoit, The Undertaker, and Kane, and it was a good match. The Rock won and retained. That was Unforgiven 2000. If I'd grade it, I'd give it a B or C+. I'll say C+. Now I'm going to talk about WCW Fall Brawl 2000, which was not a very good show. I mean, the best part of the show was Goldberg versus Scott Steiner in a one-on-one match. That was okay. It wasn't great. It was just okay. And Booker T versus Kevin Nash in a steel cage for the WCW World title, and Booker T would win the championship from Kevin Nash. That was the only 2 entertaining matches of the entire Fall Brawl 2000 pay-per-view. The rest was god-awful and just boring. If I could see the matches. Mike Awesome also defeated Jeff Jarrett in a bunkhouse brawl match. Nobody cared. I mean, the only other match that maybe anybody cared about was Lance Storm was in a match and defeated U.S. champion Lance Storm, defeated General Rection, who was Bill DeMott. So, Fall Brawl 2000, for me, it gets C minus. It wasn't a good pay-per-view. But I did enjoy Booker T winning the title and Goldberg and Scott Steiner. I was interested in seeing that match, but that wasn't very good. So, Fall Brawl gets a C minus. Up next, I'm going to talk about, I think it's on October 1st, ECW Anarchy Rulz. Took place on October 1st, before WCW Halloween Havoc and before WWF No Mercy did Anarchy Rulz take place. Anarchy Rulz was a good pay-per-view because of Jerry Lynn finally getting the World Heavyweight Championship, winning the ECW World title from Just Incredible. Jerry Lynn deserved it. He busted his ass, and I was glad he won the ECW World title. I was happy for him. And I did order Anarchy Rulz and WCW Fall Brawl 2000. I don't know why I ordered Fall Brawl, but I did. I was probably hoping it would be a good pay-per-view, and it wasn't that good. And Fall Brawl 2000 had a god-awful tag team scaffold match. It wasn't even a real scaffold. I don't know what it was. It was just a platform where they raised up above the entranceway. It was a platform, like a rubbery platform that was bouncy. It was just god-awful. You had Medusa, which made no sense because she lost a match in 97. So Medusa had to retire from WCW. So you bring back Medusa to wrestle at Fall Brawl 2000. Made no fucking sense at all. Pointless. And Medusa teamed up with Billy Kidman, I believe, to take on Shane Douglas and Tori Wilson. Mixed tag scaffold match. It was god fucking awful shit. I recommend nobody watch that match on the network from Fall Brawl 2000. The tag team scaffold mixed tag match was god fucking awful shit. Up next, as I said, Anarchy Rulz 2000. Jerry Lynn won the world title. That was awesome. I was happy for him. And Rob Van Dam took on Rhino for the TV title. Rhino was a TV champion. He was a great ECW TV champion. Paul Heyman really pushed Rhino in the year 2000, gave him the TV title, and Rhino even won the ECW World title in 2001. So he was the last real, original, last ECW World Heavyweight Champion was Rhino. Yeah, so Paul Heyman really pushed Rhino. He was a young guy. He looked like a beast. He looked like he could kick your ass. His promos were good. His promos were good. He was like an unstoppable beast, killer. I enjoyed watching Rhino in late 2000 in ECW. He was good. And Rhino defeats RVD at Anarchy Rulz. Other matches, you had Kid Cash defeat Easy Money, which was a good match. And that's all I remember about Anarchy Rulz is Jerry Lynn winning the world title, Rob Van Dam versus Rhino, that was good, and Kid Cash versus Easy Money, that was also good. So if I'm grading Anarchy Rulz 2000, I'd give it C+. Now I'm going to talk about WCW Halloween Havoc, which was just god-awful. I watched it when I first got the WWE Network last year. I watched Halloween Havoc 2000 because I never saw it before. And it was just god-awful. I wish I would have never watched it. I almost fell asleep trying to sit through 2.5 hours of Halloween Havoc 2000. It was really hard to watch. It was just god-awful. It was just sad to watch because WCW was better than the show they put on at Halloween Havoc 2000. At least they were better in the early 90s and late 90s than the year 2000. Halloween Havoc was absolute boring crap. The matches were just boring and nobody cared. The crowd definitely didn't care. They sucked. It looked like a lot of people were not even there. The arena was not sold out, and the crowd was sucked for Halloween Havoc 2000. But I don't blame them. If you're going to give the crowd and the fans a god-awful pay-per-view like Halloween Havoc 2000, they're going to just sit there and be dead quiet because nobody cared. I don't think even the fans of WCW, I don't even think the true WCW fans even cared the product they were putting on in late 2000. It was awful. So you had Sting wrestle at Halloween Havoc. Sting take on Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett defeated Sting, which was dumb. And I believe you had like 3 different guys dressed as Sting come out during the match. You had the old school Sting with a blonde flat top. I believe you had another Sting that I believe had the dyed hair, half blonde and black, dyed hair. And then you had the Crow Sting come out, and they all interfered, and they all tried to screw Sting, and Jeff Jarrett eventually won, but nobody cared. Lance Storm took on Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Why, I don't know. Or General Rection defeated U.S. Champion Lance Storm and Hacksaw Jim Duggan in a handicap match for the U.S. title. And this was stupid as hell. WCW tried to turn Hacksaw Jim Duggan heel, and he joined Team Canada with Lance Storm. That was just god-awful, and that was stupid as hell to even do that. What else was god-awful at Halloween Havoc? Rey Mysterio Jr. and Billy Kidman defeated, and Boogie Nights and Mark Jindrak and Sean O'Hare and Ray and Billy Kidman were in a 3-way match. Who the fuck came up with the name Boogie Nights? I don't know, but it was a god-awful name for Alex Wright and I believe Disco Inferno. Boogie Nights, god-awful name for a tag team. Other crap at Halloween Havoc 2000, you had Buff Bagwell defeat David Flair in a DNA match. Stupid shit. Should have not been on the show and should not have been booked on a pay-per-view, ever. It's probably a Vince Russo idea. Let's have a DNA match. That's stupid as fuck. Ernest Miller, Mike Sanders defeated Ernest Miller. Mike Sanders, I'm sure, is a nice guy, but he was never a star. Nobody ever cared for him in wrestling. That's why he's out of wrestling. And he doesn't have a job anywhere in wrestling because nobody cared for him. Or maybe Mike Sanders. I know he's in TNA for a little bit in 2003. Maybe Mike Sanders decided to retire because he didn't want to wrestle anymore and he knew he wasn't going to become a top star anyway. So maybe he retired. But Mike Sanders was no good when he was in WCW or TNA. Other matches, the main event was Booker T, the world champion, defeating Scott Steiner. That was the only good match really on the show, and it wasn't even very good. There was a lot of botches in it. The main event was Bill Goldberg defeating Chronic. Why? I don't know, but that was awful. And it was shit. Because Chronic could not put on a good match against Goldberg because all 3 guys really weren't great workers ever in their careers. No disrespect to Brian Adams, who was crushed and passed away, but he was never a great worker. So that was Halloween Havoc. If I grade it, I'd give it a F because it was fucking shit. In my opinion, it was boring as hell. And not only Halloween Havoc, but the next pay-per-view, Mayhem 2000, which was in my hometown, Milwaukee. I didn't go to it because I didn't care to go to it, because I wasn't even really watching WCW at the time. I didn't watch Nitro in November 2000 or December. I watched Raw all the time over Nitro. Anyways, Mayhem 2000, even though it was in my hometown and I could have went to it, I decided not to go to it because I knew it'd be boring, and it was. So you have Halloween Havoc in October, that was god-awful. You had Mayhem in November 2000, that was bad, but I think Halloween Havoc was probably worse. In Starrcade 2000, their WrestleMania type mega event, the granddaddy of them all, Starrcade 2000, was also pretty much crap and boring as hell. So I didn't care for Halloween Havoc, Mayhem, or Starrcade. Those were three of the very worst, in my opinion. Three of the very worst pay-per-views in WCW history. There's probably more. Could probably add New Blood Rising to that list of some of the worst WCW pay-per-views of all time. It's definitely Halloween Havoc 2000, Mayhem 2000, and Starrcade 2000, and New Blood Rising 2000 were god-awful pay-per-views. They were just boring and they were sad to watch because WCW used to be great. The glory years of the biggest years that WCW had and made a big profit were 96 to probably late 98. WCW was the most over they ever have been. In 96 to the end of 98, they were beating the crap out of Raw in the ratings for over a year. So WCW was at its highest point from 96 to the end of 98, in my opinion. So they were great at one time, and I really enjoyed watching WCW. I enjoyed it when I was a young kid in the early 90s. In 91, 92, 93, I enjoyed watching WCW, and even 94. I enjoyed watching it because, well, I was a younger kid, and I was a big fan of Sting. Sting was the franchise of WCW, and he was their top guy. That's why I was a big fan of WCW in the early 90s, because of Sting. In late 96, or June 96 to the end of 98, I also enjoyed WCW a lot because of the NWO storyline. And then that died out. And I'll talk about, in 2001 videos, I'll talk about the death of WCW and when they were the most over and most loved and the number one company, and when they were kicking WWF's ass. I'll talk about that and why they went out of business and what made them go out of business, the dumb, bad decisions that they made that made them go out of business, like WCW losing $60 million in 1998. That should have never happened, but it did. So I'll talk about WCW going out of business in my 2001 videos, and ECW went out of business at the same time, just about, in 2001. So both ECW and WCW died in 2001 within the first 3 months of 2001. I don't even know what the hell the main event was at Mayhem 2000. It was I think Booker T versus Scott Steiner in a Hell in a Cell type cage match. I believe it was called Caged Heat or some crap. Booker T could have a good match with anybody, but it was really difficult to pull out a good match out of Scott Steiner because he was Big Papa Pump. He looked like he was juiced out of his mind on steroids at the time. So Booker T pulling a good match out of Scott Steiner, that would have been a miracle. But he put on an okay match. And Scott Steiner was not a great worker. He had a back injury, I believe, in 98, and he had to leave, rehab it, and then he came back in 99. So Scott Steiner, he's probably really beat up at the end of 2000. He was not putting on great matches at all, like he did in the early 90s with his brother as his tag partner. So what the hell? Mayhem, the steel cage match, was just called a cage match, but it looked like a Hell in a Cell type cage that came down outside of the ring. Other things at Mayhem were Kevin Nash and DDP won the World Tag Team titles from Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak. The rest of the card was boring and crap. So Mayhem 2000 from my hometown, the grade it gets is a D-. It was bad. The only point of watching Mayhem 2000 is to see Booker T defend the world title, I guess. So that was Mayhem. Now I'm going to go back to October in WWF Unforgiven 2000, which took place in October. It was on No Mercy. Not Unforgiven. If I said Unforgiven, I meant No Mercy 2000. So in No Mercy 2000, the main event was Kurt Angle getting a title shot against The Rock, the WWF champion. The championship was on the line. Kurt Angle wins the WWF championship for the first time. I marked out. I was happy. Kurt Angle became the new champion. It was a great moment. Great for Kurt Angle and great for his career that he won the world title from The Rock. At No Mercy 2000, also Stone Cold returned to the ring. I believe it was a no disqualification or no holds barred match. Stone Cold returned, brought his truck out, drove his truck in the arena, brought it out. He had street clothes on, really tight shorts like he always wore, tight shorts, knee braces, and a Stone Cold shirt. He basically beat the hell out of Rikishi, beat him to a bloody pulp. And then they went out to the back in the parking lot, and Stone Cold was going to run over Rikishi with his truck. Rikishi was, I think, laying in some bushes, and passed out, bleeding profusely. Stone Cold was going to back his truck up into Rikishi, and then the police car came like this and blocked Stone Cold's truck, so Stone Cold hit the police car so he didn't run over Rikishi, because in November 99, when Stone Cold was run over at Survivor Series, later in 2000 they explained and we all found out that Rikishi did it, and he did it for The Rock. Whatever the fuck that meant, that was stupid, and I don't know why they came up with Rikishi having to say, I did it for The Rock. And The Rock was not getting pushed because he wasn't a white champion or some crap like that. Then Rikishi started bringing up, look at all the past champions, the Great White Hope, Bob Backlund, Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, whatever, all white guys. And The Rock was, I guess, the first African-American world champion, but he's also half Samoan. So, whatever, he's half Samoan, half black. So Rikishi gets his ass kicked, and Stone Cold makes his return to the ring at No Mercy. No Mercy 2000 was a good pay-per-view. I enjoyed it. I would give it a grade of a C+. I enjoyed it. Kurt Angle winning the world title, that was an A+. That was great. Now I'm going to talk about Survivor Series 2000 and ECW November to Remember 2000. Survivor Series 2000, what I remember about it was Undertaker got a title shot against Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's brother, he had the same haircut as Kurt Angle. He looked like Kurt Angle's twin. He was his brother, and they looked like twins. I believe his name was Eric Angle. I believe he was even signed by the WWF at one time when he was put in development. He was put in the minor leagues. Probably OVW was Kurt Angle's brother. Was probably in OVW for a while. And I guess then they released him because he never had a career in the WWF. So Kurt Angle's brother Eric Angle comes out, I believe, from under the ring. Undertaker hits a last ride on him, or some type of finishing move of the Undertaker's. Hits a finisher on Eric Angle, everybody thought, I'm sure that was watching it, that's Kurt Angle, or they thought that was not Kurt Angle because they saw him come out from under the ring. I'm sure the fans in the arena knew that wasn't Kurt Angle, but maybe they were fooled. Because he had the same gear as Kurt Angle, he had the same haircut, and he looked like his damn twin. So Eric Angle gets pinned by The Undertaker. And The Undertaker, I believe they said he did not win the world title. The referee, I believe, was Earl Hebner. He said, you did not win. You're not the champion because that guy is not Kurt Angle. It's basically the finish of the stupid finish of last night's Divas title match between Nikki and Charlotte, where they did the fucking twin magic finish again for the 900th time. And Charlotte won the title, then they took it from her because Stephanie McMahon had to uphold the respect, or whatever the hell she said, I don't remember. She had to uphold the dignity and respect of the Divas division. Yeah, fucking right. Give me a fucking break. That's a bunch of bullshit. The Divas division basically sucks, and it's booked god-awful. I don't know why it's fine having Nikki Bella as a champion, but if you're going to have her as a champion, make her start defending the fucking title at least once a month. If not once a month, then every 3 weeks. Don't have her go ever again. WWE never again should have Nikki Bella go over 2 months with not defending the title, because if they're going to do that again, or they should just do it now. They should take the Divas title out of the WWE and throw it in the fucking trash and get rid of that title and just bring back the women's title, because the Divas title doesn't mean jack shit. Even with Nikki holding it for whatever 269 days, and that's all Nikki knows how to do is 69 her boyfriend to keep the title. So whatever it's been, 269 days, all she does is 69 John Cena to keep her title and to keep her spot in the Divas division, in my opinion, is by basically 69ing Cena, or doing whatever Cena wants her to do for him, to pleasure him. So whatever, Nikki Bella, they should throw the Divas title in the trash because it doesn't mean jack shit, and it's a belt that means nothing. And it's not even a belt. In my opinion, the Divas title is just a piece of fucking tin. What the hell? Survivor Series 2000. I'm looking it up because I want to know the finish. I know Kurt Angle retained against The Undertaker, but I want to see if it's by DQ or what. So Kurt Angle just, I believe after Eric Angle got out of the ring, Kurt Angle came back in, rolled up The Undertaker in a schoolboy, held his tights, 1, 2, 3, Kurt Angle retained. Other matches at Survivor Series 2000 I enjoyed were, you had, where's that match? Molly Holly, Crash Holly, and Steve Blackman in a six-person intergender match against Trish and TNA. That was entertaining. You had The Rock defeat Rikishi. That was also pretty good. Wasn't great, but it was pretty good. Ivory as women's champion. I believe she's playing the Right to Censor gimmick by now. Ivory defeated, or maybe the Right to Censor gimmick started in early 2000. Anyways, Ivory as women's champ defeated Lita. And the main event was Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating Triple H, or Stone Cold and Triple H fought to a no contest because the finish was, it was a street fight. They fought to the backstage area in the parking lot. Stone Cold got Triple H up in a car, locked him in a car, I guess, by putting spikes in it, lifting it up lifting Triple H up in the car from a crane. Stone Cold was in a crane, basically put the car up like 40 feet in the air or something, or 50 or 40 feet up, 30 feet up maybe. And then Triple H was shown, his face was shown in it. He was begging Stone Cold. He said, no, please, Steve, no. And then basically he was shown in the window, but obviously Triple H was not in the car. They probably pre-taped that footage of his face being shown in the car in the driver's seat. So I'm sure that was a pre-tape. So Stone Cold dumps the car off the top in the air, dumps the car off. It lands on its top of the roof and it gets absolutely crushed and just absolutely splats down to the concrete and gets crushed. And if Triple H was in there, he would have been dead. Anyways, Triple H did return, I believe in December 2000, like 2 or 3 weeks later, I think. He returned on Raw. He didn't have one scratch on his face, didn't have one mark on him. He just came back like he was not in that car. And he came back and attacked Stone Cold on Raw, hit Stone Cold with a metal pipe, busted him open, and so Triple H was back. And Triple H and Stone Cold, they had a great feud at the end of 2000, going into 2001, where they had another epic 3 stages of hell match at No Way Out, 2001. So Survivor Series, if I'd grade it, I'd give it a C+. It was a good show. Now I'm going to talk about ECW November to Remember 2000, where you had, what the hell was that? November to Remember 2000. I almost forgot what I was talking about. November to Remember 2000, they put on a Flaming Tables match, and this was fucking insane. They basically sprayed way too much of the lighter fluid on the flames, and the flames got higher and higher and bigger, and Balls Mahoney powerbombed, I believe, Angel of the Baldies. Balls Mahoney powerbombed them through the flaming table. That was insane. And he got burned, I'm sure, a bit, and then they had a milk carton of water, and they'd start dumping on him because the guy needed help. The guy was just powerbombed through a flaming fucking table. The guy needed medical attention. Hopefully he was okay, and I'm sure he was after the pay-per-view. Hopefully he didn't get any second-degree burns or something like that. So that match was absolutely dangerous and insane. Flaming Tables match, always insane. But it was entertaining. I enjoyed it because I was an ECW fan. And I did order November to Remember 2000 because, again, I was a big ECW fan. Other matches at November to Remember 2000, you had the return of Super Crazy. Finally, he got his visa issues cleared up, and Super Crazy could return to the United States and wrestle again. So Super Crazy returned at November to Remember 2000. That was great. Nova took on his former partner, Chris Chetty. They had I believe it was a no-holds-barred match or a street fight. That was a pretty damn good match between those two guys. The main event was Steve Corino versus a Sandman versus Just Incredible versus Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn was the ECW World Champion, I believe, going into November to Remember. And I think it was called a Double Jeopardy match. And the rules were Just Incredible, and I think somebody would start one-on-one, and whoever won, or the other guys then would put a one-on-one match, and then it would turn into a 4-way, and whoever won, got the winning pinfall, would win the world title. Well, Steve Corino wins the match to become the new ECW World Heavyweight Champion. It was a Double Jeopardy match, so it was basically a 4-way. Steve Corino, as I said, Steve Corino won the ECW World Championship. Jerry Lynn only held the title for 1 month. 1 month and 4 days. Jerry Lynn was the ECW World Champion for only a month and 4 days. But I was happy for Steve Corino to win the world title because I was a fan of his in 2000. So November to remember, if I'd grade it, I would give it, and Tommy Dreamer was not on November to remember 2000. He made an appearance and said something on the microphone, basically to get over with the Chicago fans. I believe he pulled out a ticket and said, or something about, I think he brought up Sammy Sosa hitting a 60th home run or something like that. Anyways, a Chicago crowd popped for Tommy Dreamer because he said something about the Cubs. So Dreamer was not on the pay-per-view because he had a back injury, but he would return in December. So that was November to remember. If I'd grade it, I'd give it a B. Just a B. I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a good pay-per-view. Now I'm going to talk about, let's see, Before Massacre on 34th Street, which was a December pay-per-view. I'm going to talk about the Dudley Boyz returned to ECW for one show only. It was at in Queens, New York, the tiny little nightclub where ECW would go in Queens, New York. I forget the name of the building, but it was in Queens. And the crowd was always rowdy and a great crowd and a hostile crowd and just really into the show. So they were a great crowd in Queens. Dudley's returned to ECW for one night in Queens, and I believe they defeated Simon Diamond and I think C.W. Anderson, or one of those guys, were teammates. Anyways, and then Dawn Marie was at ringside. Bubba Ray pulled her legs up in the air, and Devon went up to the rope, did the what's up, and headbutted Dawn Marie in the privates. So that got over with the ECW fans. And then the Dudleys, after the match, got on the microphone, and I know they returned in 2000 in December because this match was put on a Dudley Boyz ECW DVD that I own. Then the Dudleys, after the match, get on the mic. Tommy Dreamer's in the ring with them. I think it was a 6-man tag, Dreamer and the Dudleys against, I believe, C.W. Anderson, Simon Diamond, and Johnny Swinger. So Bubba Ray and the Dudleys get on the mic and say, they call out Paul Heyman. He comes out and they say, we did this out of respect for you, Paul, because you gave us our start and you put us on the map. So the Dudleys returned as a favor to ECW and Paul Heyman. They returned it just as a favor. They were not paid. They just returned as a favor to Paul Heyman. So that was nice. That was a nice speech Bubba Ray gave and Devon gave, and then they both hugged Paul Heyman, and Dudley Boyz chant broke out, and an ECW chant also broke out. Now I'm going to talk about the last pay-per-view from ECW of the year 2000. It was Massacre on 34th Street. Pretty good name for a pay-per-view, I thought. Took place from New York City. Great crowd. Always was there to see ECW at the Hammerstein Ballroom. The main event, you had a great tag match on the show that I remember. I believe it was a three-way. It was three-way match. Yoshihiro Tajiri and Mikey Whipwreck defeated Super Crazy and Kid Cash. So it was just a tag match, but it was a really good match. And the main event was Steve Corino defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Justin Credible and Jerry Lynn in a three-way elimination match. Steve Corino would win and retain the ECW World title. So that was Massacre on 34th Street. Good pay-per-view, a lot of good action. I enjoyed it. Crowd was great. I'd give it a C+ as a pay-per-view. Now I'm going to talk about WCW Starrcade 2000, which I thought was god-awful. I don't remember many of the matches. I know they had a tag team ladder match between, I believe, the Young Dragons and 3 Count. That was pretty entertaining, and that the entire match basically was all high spots, but it was an entertaining ladder match. From all the guys involved, the Young Dragons and 3 Count, they were all young guys. They were busting their ass to put on a good ladder match for the fans. So I respect that. And it was an entertaining ladder match. But the rest of Starrcade was pretty awful. Lance Storm defeated the Cat. Why was that on Starrcade? I don't have a clue. Bad booking. Terry Funk defeated Hardcore Champion Crowbar. That shouldn't have been on the pay-per-view either. Chronic defeated Big Vito and Reno in a no contest. Nobody cared. Mike Awesome defeated Bam Bam Bigelow in an ambulance match. Why the fuck were they having an ambulance match? I don't know. Bad, god-awful booking on WCW's part. General Rection defeated Shane Douglas by disqualification, and nobody cared about their feud. It was boring. Jeff Jarrett and the Harris Boys, or Harris Brothers, defeated Kidman, Rey Mysterio, and Conan in a street fight. Kevin Nash and DDP defeated World Tag Team Champions Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak to win the tag titles. I thought they won them at Mayhem, but maybe they lost them before Starrcade and then won them back at Starrcade. Bill Goldberg defeated Lex Luger, which was a god-awful match. Should have never been on the pay-per-view, and they shouldn't even been booked to work together. Main event was Scott Steiner defending the WCW Championship against Sid Vicious, and the match was absolutely shit. So, Starrcade 2000, probably one of the worst Starrcades in history. Before 2000, all the other Starrcades were probably way better. And most of them were, because I've seen every Starrcade pay-per-view. So, Starrcade 2000 gets a D-. It would get an F, but the ladder match was on it, so that made the show a tiny bit better. Or that made Starrcade 2000, if the ladder match was not on there, I would have gave it an F. Or maybe it was a 3-way ladder match. I don't know. Or 3 Count. 3 guys defeated 3 guys in the Young Dragons. Jamie Noble, Kaz Hayashi, and Jimmy Yang. And that was a 6-man ladder match. So if that was not on Starrcade 2000, I would have gave Starrcade 2000 an F because it fucking sucked. Okay, I'm done talking about WCW. That was their last pay-per-view of the year 2000. And as I said, Halloween Havoc, Mayhem, and Starrcade 2000 were 3 of the very worst pay-per-views, in my opinion, in WCW history. I almost talked about everything I had to say. Mick Foley, I think before Armageddon, or after Armageddon 2000, Mick Foley was fired as a WWF commissioner on Raw. He was fired, and I believe somebody beat him down, and Vince humiliated him as Mr. McMahon and screamed in his face, "You're fired." So that was in December 2000, I think, where Mick Foley was fired by Mr. McMahon as commissioner. I believe he'd be reinstated as commissioner in 2001 by Linda McMahon or by somebody. Sting was not on WCW's pay-per-view in November or December. Sting was not on Mayhem or Starrcade 2000 for some reason. He was not. maybe he was injured in a storyline, so he was out of action because of a storyline injury to take him out because he wanted time off. I don't know. But that was a bad move to not have Sting at Starrcade 2000. That was just bad. And I missed seeing Sting on Starrcade 2000. He should have been there, but he wasn't. So now I'm going to talk about WWF Armageddon 2000, the last pay-per-view for the WWF for the year, in the year 2000. And the Hell in the Cell main event, 6 men in the Hell in the Cell going after the WWF Championship. Kurt Angle is champion going in, and Kurt Angle would amazingly win and retain the championship in the Hell in a Cell match at Armageddon 2000. I thought it was a great Hell in a Cell. The only thing that was kind of stupid and cheesy was when The Undertaker chokeslammed and threw, basically just pushed. Rikishi wasn't even pushed, he just fell back. He fell back off the top of the roof of the cell onto, I guess, a whole bunch of, like, wood chips, or it looked like wood chips or hay. Rikishi falls back first off the cell on top of like a giant truck of hay, or it looked like hay. Anyways, you don't know what hay is. It's the stuff horses eat. So it looked like hay. Rikishi falls on it, and then he looks like he's knocked out, cold. And the crowd did love that spot because they popped when Rikishi fell off the cell. It was a great cell match. You had chairs used, and Undertaker was in it. Undertaker, Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, The Rock, Rikishi. When you have guys, Triple H was in it. When you have all those top stars involved in one match, it can't really be that bad. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good Hell in a Cell match. It was entertaining because all the guys that were in it, and every guy just about was a great worker. The only guy that wasn't that great of a worker was Rikishi, but the rest were absolutely fantastic wrestlers and workers and top guys. So Armageddon 2000, it gets a B+ from me. I enjoyed it. You also had on the pay-per-view, I believe, Billy Gunn, I think, was Intercontinental Champion, or Billy Gunn defeated Chris Benoit for the Intercontinental title. I don't remember. But Billy Gunn and Chris Benoit, that was pretty good. Other matches, they had a Fatal 4-Way tag team match, I believe, for the tag titles. It was Dudley's versus Right to Censor versus, I think, TNA. Let me look it up. It was Edge and Christian winning a Fatal 4-Way tag team match against World Tag Team Champions the Dudleys, Bo Buchanan and the Godfather, and the Road Dogg and Kate Quick. Road Dogg would start to have drug problems at the end of 2000 because after that he was released from the WWF, and he would show up in NWA TNA in 2002 for a short time. And then, of course, later on, I believe, 2005 or 6, Road Dogg would show up again in TNA and work there for, I think, a year or something. So Armageddon 2000, as I said, gets a B+. I enjoyed it. So now I'm finished talking about the year 2000. This was part 3 of the year in wrestling, the year 2000 video. Hope you enjoyed my videos on the year 2000. Some of them were pretty damn long. I apologize, but I talked about the entire year 2003 videos. So if you want to watch the past videos I've done on the year 2000, I have a part 2 and a part 1 up on my YouTube channel. This is part 3, my final video for the year 2000. I'm excited to talk about 2001. The year in wrestling 2001, because a lot of good stuff happened, and entertaining matches and gimmick matches like TLC 2 at WrestleMania 17, Stone Cold turning heel. That didn't work really good, but it happened. He turned heel and tried something different at least. And then the Invasion storyline started, where the alliance of WCW and ECW got together to take on the WWF and put them out of business. That wasn't very good because they couldn't bring in guys like Goldberg or Sting or Flair or even Scott Steiner. They couldn't even bring him in, or they couldn't bring Hogan in, or Kevin Nash or Scott Hall. They couldn't bring any of the NWO in for the Invasion storyline, so that made it fail. Because you couldn't bring in the top guys that worked in WCW for years and years and that got over in WCW before they even worked for the WWF. Guys like Sting, which was basically the top guy in the franchise of WCW the entire time they were in business. He didn't work for WWE during the Invasion storyline. He didn't come over. He probably still had a contract with AOL, Time Warner. We're paying him probably for 1 or 2 more years. And he didn't want to get out of his contract to come to the WWF, probably because he saw how Booker T was used on WWF television. And Booker T just jobbed to The Rock at SummerSlam 2000. So Sting, I'm sure that made Sting not want to come to WWF at the time, seeing how Booker T was used and handled, and to see how DDP was used. He was just beaten up. Basically, he got his ass kicked by The Undertaker in the summer of 2001. So, I'm done talking about the year in wrestling. This was the year 2000 part 3. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back on tomorrow. I'll be back with my WWE Night of Champions predictions video. And then Thursday, I'll probably do part 1 of my Year in Wrestling Year 2001 video. Hope you enjoyed it. Follow me on Twitter at TNAWWE Guy and at NXT WWE Guy. Bye for now, everybody.